Hello, welcome to Jesus Before Money. My name's Corey, and I'm happy that you're here. So, this evening, what are we today anyway? It's still Monday. It's about Monday, 12 o'clock Eastern, so I guess it's really Tuesday. But anyway, that's funny. I got talking with my grandpa about the bank stocks, my bank stock video, which I thought was the most important, but obviously my crypto videos got the most likes. Woo, maybe 20 or so, but whatever. But anyway, I just told him, I said, listen, the bank stocks are in a heavy resistance. If we don't get a sell tomorrow, then I think tomorrow is just, I think, a very pivotal day. None of this is financial advice, right? Talk to your financial advisor. In fact, send your financial advisor this video. But I said, listen, if the bank stocks don't sell off tomorrow, then we can continue higher. But, they're in a major resistance. I don't know. It'd be hard in my mind to see them going much higher, but maybe they do. Obviously, anything's possible. And I just said, man, if it doesn't happen tomorrow, if it doesn't happen this quarter, it's just going to be interesting to see how far this stock market can run, or what is going to be the catalyst that might send us off the mountain. If we're even going to go off the mountain. I don't have that crystal ball. It just kind of looks like we're going to have a nice little check back, right? Anyway, my grandfather mentioned, hey, I got 2 Canadian stocks. Can you look at? I was like, sure, I'll look at some Canadian stocks. So I'm going to look at the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce and the Royal Bank of Canada. Maybe I get some Canadians that join. I'd love it. But anyway, before we get to those, kind of want to, paint the broader picture. I think it's important. Is we're going to look at Bitcoin. We're going to look at the 10-year yield. We're going to look at U.S. oil, SPX, and then we'll look at Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce and the Royal Bank of Canada. Okay, so I put out this video this morning, and on Saturday, I think the video came out on Sunday. So Sunday and Monday morning, I was trying to scream, don't FOMO, fear of missing out into Bitcoin. And I had a parallel channel that kind of did not include these tips. I was trying to get the best fit line, but if I just went tip to tip to tip, I was like, wow, look at that. This is a weekly chart, okay? So every candle is a week. Look what happened today. We tagged it and we pulled back hard, okay? If this continues to sell this way, there are some technical parameters for what's called a topping tail. But right now, this is definitely topping tail on at least the weekly. If I go to the daily chart, but that week just began, right? We still have 5 days. If I go to the daily chart here, this is the definition of a topping tail. And what is a topping tail, Corey? The true specs would be you would measure this whole candle, okay? And as long you see the cross line here, let me zoom in a little bit. Hold on. I want you to see this. This is a teaching event. Okay, you can see that candle a lot better. All right. if you take your measuring tool, come down from the tip of the wick to the tail, okay? The body of the candle needs to be below the 50% line, which is the middle of that cross. So yes, we're in the 50%, lower 50% of the body. Now where we closed in the body needs to be in the lower 25% of the 50%, or 50% of the 50% needs to be in the lower 25% of the whole move, right? So that would need to be below that cross, the top of this body right here. So yes, this was a topping tail on Bitcoin. Topping tails can fail, but I showed you a much larger trend line going back decades and a topping tail. And then look at this candle. Boom. Taking out literally the past 1, 2, today took out the past 2 days of trading, but really it's 1, 2, 3 days gone, right? People that FOMO'd in here, people that started to push into Bitcoin here just got wiped out. We can push back. If you have a topping tail, sometimes you reverse back to about the 50% line, and you can add at 50%, and you can add back at this trend line for a short, right? I'm not advising you to do anything, but that is a textbook trade. But this candle here and this topping tail, but this big sell here is kind of suggesting to me that that's not going to happen. And I will be putting out more videos to come on buy levels for other cryptos, but I was trying to warn you guys, to the little people that watch me, you know, the whole 5 views I get, that was coming, okay? And how I found that, this could be adjusted just a little bit, but was this right here, okay? This is 2017. This tip to this hit in April 21, all the free COVID money, and then, you know, and then this speculation here. But this is not a good sign for Bitcoin. And I did a calculation on this that when you hit here, you typically go down, you know, that was about a 70% drop just to there. I mean, the whole lows after we hit 82% off of that, right, to the lows there. If we hit here, I'm just going to include these lows, but really, it was a 75% drop. I mean, you put in a double top, but call it 55%. And so what I'm curious is, how far are we going to go? Let's just say a 50% drop. Maybe, just maybe, we get back to here, which was this breakout of this cup and handle line. Maybe, just maybe. I'm not saying it's going to happen. Don't quote me. But I'm just trying to think out loud, right? That line compared with maybe this pivot here. Pivot to pivot. You know, probably going to retest these lows. Probably. And we're going to get bounces along the way, but this line is very significant. When you hit this line, you drop. When you hit this line, you drop. Tried to come back up and dropped. But the thing there is, look, we've already come here and we've already made an M. This is an M pattern, right? A double top. This is an M pattern with just a higher right side. So in the short term, I think we're probably going to see a pretty decent pullback. All right, let's get off of that. Okay, US 10-year. Now, I'm going to start doing broad picture, mid picture, micro picture. Broad picture on US 10-year, right? This goes back to, right here is 1987, 87, but 40-year consolidation pattern breakout, right? So, typically, you would at least reverse back to your 50% level. So, higher interest rates could be coming, but this is a weekly chart. It's going to be slow, right? It's not going to happen overnight, okay? If it happens at all. And the thing I say there is because this is so upsloping here, upsloping lines like this kind of tend to break to the downside more than this breaks to the upside probability-wise, this type of pattern, okay? But it's there. Now, let's go into more of this is the mid pattern, okay? Is watching this trend line, your highs and your lows, and watching to see which way this breaks, mid pattern. Micro pattern. Within this little wedge, micro pattern, okay? We have been in this consolidation pattern, broke, retested, and now we're moving higher. As of right now, about midnight Central Time, heading into Tuesday, so about just the turn of the day, Tuesday, interest rates are coming down just a little bit, okay? We're barely down, but the only thing I was starting to think is maybe the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, tomorrow morning at 08:30 Eastern, maybe it's going to be a little less, okay? But what I was kind of saying before is because we broke out and checked back, this does open the door for us to test on our mid pattern, micro pattern, back to mid pattern, up here to this trend line, 4.7%. It's not going to go there tomorrow, right? These are 4 hours. So if I just go to a day chart, give you perspective here, you know, this move took many days. Each one of these is a day. But you could see, you know, from this over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So maybe in about 2 weeks, within maybe 2 weeks, we could be up there. Just in the back of your mind, what are interest rates doing? Are interest rates going to continue up to 4.7%, which is going to cause the stock market to go down with that inverse relationship, or does this fail? In my mind, we're going to continue up. Probably going to retest this high in the very near term, within a week or two. 4.6%, and we'll get a little check back, and maybe over the next week, so in 2 or 3 weeks, we'll probably see about 4.7%, probability-wise. Okay? Now, U.S. oil. I was talking to my grandpa, and he said, well, you said oil was going to just rip here. And I was like, man, I was on a monthly chart. And so let me just clarify here on my oil prediction. What the charts are saying on a monthly. See, this is actually a weekly chart. But it's same on the monthly. We've had this big up move since COVID. This is COVID, right? And then we've been consolidating in here. This type of wedge pattern, downsloping, tends to break to the upside. Okay? And you could call this a flagpole, and this is kind of making a flag. So almost like a very bullish wedge, bull flag breakout. Okay? And if you did a Fibonacci extension, a trend-based fib extension from this low to this high to this low, you can see when this breaks out, we can go really high, $157, $185 a barrel. That just seems ridiculous, but it's possible. That's kind of what the chart is indicating, okay? It doesn't have to happen that way. But the thing I thought is, okay, that seems pretty ridiculous, but could we at least retest this high from '08? When we got up to $146 a barrel? I would say yeah. But not coming tomorrow. All right? Macro pattern. The big picture. We're talking about maybe a couple years down the road. A year. We're talking about time. Okay? Not tomorrow. Okay? Now let's go to the mid pattern. The mid pattern. For that, I'm going to switch to the daily. Okay? The mid pattern. We had Iran. Okay? First of all, how did we know? Okay, it was Friday the 13th of June. I think it was Friday the 13th. It was just big candle. But even before that, okay, we started having some escalation there. And look at this pattern. So we already knew. So this is the mid pattern. We already knew oil was going to take off. Okay? What is this? Shoulder, head, shoulder. An inverse head and shoulders. So oil was setting up for a launch. And the Iran-Israel conflict put that over the top. Because this launch was only supposed to be, call it $9. That's $8.70. Let's just say it was $9, okay? So from this breakout right here, we should have only really gone up about $9, and we had a very extended move, up 21%. Okay? Now, what's going on right now, okay, is this pattern. The sell-off, and now sideways to up consolidation. This is now putting in a bear flag. Bear flag. Okay? So this is suggesting that in the short term, oil, probability-wise, is probably going to break down. Probably going to retest this trend line here. Okay? But, just but, if this is a failed pattern, thinking everyone that this is bearish consolidation, all the traders that are starting to get bearish on oil, and this goes the opposite direction, that's when you get major moves to the other way. Okay? Just in the back of your mind. But the pattern right now is showing us that this is bearish consolidation and we should break down. But when I did talk to my grandfather, I said, listen, we are back to support here on this inverse head and shoulders neckline. You get a breakout, you get a retest. Okay? This would be a good time to buy oil. Right? Just in case this rips back up. Since then, it hasn't been doing that. Okay? Which is fine. But that would have been the place to buy oil. And as you can see in the chart, that was the place to buy oil. Since that buy, right, oil has gone up 8%. An 8% win is not nothing to shake a stick at, okay? But this pattern is bearish. So in the short term, we're going to retest this probabilities suggest that we are going to retest this line around $64 a barrel, okay? Understand, the macro pattern, this massive wedge, which tends to break to the upside, but within the wedge, what are we doing? We are putting in a bear flag. Putting in a bear flag and about to retest this trend line at $64. If this breaks, then watch out. We're going to come in. But we will reevaluate that later. Moving on. The SPX. Okay? The SPX. I have these trend lines here. This one in particular I really, really like. And we have not retagged it up here yet. So we could still go higher on the SPX. But what, as investors, anybody with money in this, I don't follow Dow. I don't follow the QQQ. Like, I watch them, I have them, but all of those, the 30 stocks that are in the Dow, the 100 stocks that are in the QQQ, they're all in the S&P 500. I mean, I want to watch the 500 stocks in 11 different sectors of the U.S. economy to tell me what's going on, not 30 stocks, not 100 stocks. You know what I mean? And the 100 stock, they have Costco in the NASDAQ. I mean, it's not even what you think it is. I follow the S&P 500, the SPX. I think it's the true gauge. Just like Bitcoin, I think is the true gauge for crypto. You got to watch the leaders. Okay, so what to watch? This trend line here. Boom. This trend line here, right here. Okay? These were our highs, and we collapsed. And look what we have been doing. Let me zoom in. Oh, looky, 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 loo. We have been finding a lot of support on this trend line. Very interesting. Okay? Now, I was kind of saying that these met, if you look at the bottom of the screen, on Monday, which was today. So we kind of came into support, and then we found bounce. Exactly what I said. I thought today was going to be a float day. Now, tomorrow, with the bank stocks starting to report, and they're all at all-time highs, and then we have CPI data, I'm just starting to think, are we going to break this trend line? It's a lot of support now. We got this trend line and this trend line. But when this breaks, and from a more technical standpoint, right, we're going to look at the 8 and the 21 EMA. This is what a lot of traders watch. But if we break the 8 tomorrow, whenever we break the 8, right, we're still going to have a lot of support underneath us. But it's really the 8 and then the 21. I mean, we're so far away, it's hard to say right now, right? We do have support under this market. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow. I'm just throwing up a red flag that we're extended, and be careful, right? Break the 8. I really believe that once we break this line, these highs right here before the rollover, once we break this, and we had a gap over it just to even get above it, right? And then we had a retest. And I don't really like this sideways consolidation. In fact, I was kind of looking at this. If you just draw these lines, and it's probably going to start getting blurry. But this is just kind of getting too vertical this way. And this is kind of the top trend line here. So I don't even know if we're going to... And maybe we tagged... Anyway, I don't know. I'm trying to watch. I'm trying to see. But what I want to leave you with before we get to the Canadian stocks is this trend line. This trend line here. If we break this trend line, I think we're going to lose the 21, and then we're going to retest the all-time high before the collapse. And once we get below the 21, right here, this was the 8, this was the 21. Once you get below the 21, that's when the selling starts. That's when the selling really starts, is once you lose the 21. And then once you're above the 21, you're in a bullish phase. But if we lose the 8, everyone's going to be teetering. And then if we lose this trend line, You know, we'll probably have the 21 right up under there, and we'll be on this. I mean, it could come quick, right? It could come quick. The selling could come very, very quick, and let's just leave it there. But in the short term, I would just really follow this trend line. Do we break this trend line? I don't necessarily would even worry about this one here. This trend line is the most important. Once we lose the highs, we're probably going to lose the 8, probably going to be below the 21. We're going to retest this all-time high. Okay, let's move on to the Canadian Imperial Bank of Canada. I love going to Canada. I love Canada. My dad and I truck up there, and man, British Columbia. We go up to Alaska. It's beautiful. It is just absolutely gorgeous. I love Canada. Okay, enough of Canada talk. So I was kind of looking at parallels. I don't necessarily like this. I'm on a monthly chart, so each one of these is a month. But this was the banking financial crisis, and this was COVID, and you had Pierce's, right? And really, if you just connect these, the most of the lows, like your best fit line, you know, and then you connect, you can maybe say that that's the top one option. Okay. Now, parallel channel this way, if I connect the bottoms, you could say, hey, we're breaking out, which I thought was interesting. You know, maybe this is a breakout, maybe it's a bull trap. Gonna reverse. But I found some other trend lines. So let's look at the trend lines. I think trend line number 1, ding, 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 suggesting that we're into heavy resistance here. And trend line number 2, nope, that's parallel. I can read. Trend line number 2, ting, ting, ting. I'll put this to a daily. We'll adjust this. And then trend-based fib extension. Oh, yeah, I can read this one. We go here, here. Maybe we'll come up to 77, right? And then the other trend-based fib extension, that one's on, was this one. Maybe here, here, suggesting that the 73.45 was a very important. So I'll hide this one. So notice that we could go higher, right? Maybe 77, but all my trend lines are saying that that might not happen right now. Okay, so let's focus here. Now I'm going to switch to the daily. I'm going to hide this actually for a second. Hide. I'll put that back on. But I'm going to switch to the daily chart. So the daily pattern, okay? You can see here, ting, ting, ting. I like saying ting. I don't know why. But this pattern, this trend line is holding. And then here was here, here. And then it retested, got rejected. And now we're retesting, almost retesting again. Okay? And, you know, you could go up or down just slightly. But what's interesting is once we hit here, I don't see any reversal sign. I don't see a topping tail. I don't see a bearish engulfing candle. So I think it could still have room to run. So where might we run? I kind of like this pivot here. So I kind of liked my trend-based fib extension going from here to here to here. Oh. You know, 73. I mean, this is suggesting that it topped. Well, we know, what I found out is that things can go higher than you think, right? And usually they like whole round numbers. So, you know, there's probably a lot of people sitting there waiting for the $75 number in my mind. You know, once it gets to $75, you know, I'll sell. Maybe. You know what I mean? And you know, if you include this tip here, let me see what happens there. You know, maybe that was a failed breakout. I don't know. But I really liked kind of trending right kind of in between these two. Ding, ding, because it kind of bounced, caught support, broke, retested. I like that. So, you know, this thing can still go higher. And maybe, just maybe, if we do the full move here, yeah, I'm not 86. I don't see that. I don't see that, guys. I think right here. I think this is it. You probably, not financial advice, but you probably want to start trimming back your position, right? I mean, X marks the spot right here, right around $75. 75 is probably going to see a lot of selling pressure if it gets there. And this bank reports earnings according. I found out that this wasn't necessarily correct in my Domino's Pizza video. Domino's doesn't report till next Monday, but anyway, they might be reporting the 28th of August, so you might have some time. But all I'm going to suggest is look at the vertical nature of this move, and then look at the bearish divergence here. RSI is going down. Here, I'll make this bigger. I'm going to hide this just so you can see it. I'll zoom in a little bit so I can make a point. But here is the high on your RSI corresponding to this pivot. And the stock's been creeping up while the RSI is actually, not made a new all-time high, right? This is starting to creep down, suggesting that it's starting to wear out. It's starting to get extended. So a pullback is due on CM. A pullback is due on CM. Just win. And just maybe, you're going to see $75. I could see that. I can see $75, nice whole round number, kind of being the short-term top, because I really don't see any sort of major reversal signal here, right? I mean, here you could say the institutions were trying to pop us up, and then we got rejected, but this isn't a topping tail. This is really a lot of buying pressure underneath. This candle isn't a huge sell, but if you get a big sell candle, you probably need to get out. Not financial advice, but I would just say if you get back to if you get back to 73.50, probably just exit. All right, now the Royal Bank of Canada, last one for tonight, monthly chart. I was looking at this one too, and right away I noticed these pivots and I dragged up a parallel. Okay, I'll just do that for you. This is how I kind of see things. Notice pivots. And I dragged up a parallel. Cool. And what you can see there is that ting ting, we tagged it, right? Not only that, monthly chart from this pivot. Okay. Usually, if you flush out to the bottom, like in the Canadian bank stock, like flush out here, it's hard to say that you've been, use anything back here to say that you've had RSI, even though you kind of have, right? The stock. Hold on. The stock since here was here, where you've really been on an upward trajectory, while this has been kind of not making you highs. But once you get a flush out, it kind of resets RSI. Or that's the theory. So, but here we haven't had a big flush out since the financial crisis, right? Financial crisis and COVID. But as you can see, this stock has gone up while the RSI has been drifting down. I'll actually put a trend line on that so you can see. Trend line has been drifting just ever so slightly downward. See that? This downward slope, nothing crazy. But now we're coming into here. And so I thought, well, okay, that's interesting. Can I find some trend lines? And I did. I found trend line there. And I found, let's see. I had another trend line, I thought. I did. I'll have to just draw that. And then I did this little trend-based fib extension from here to here to here, saying we could push higher. I'm gonna hide that for a second. Give me a second. Okay. That trend line's good. And then I thought I had a second trend line, just like the other bank, which takes us a little bit higher. All right, that's monthly. Let me go to daily and fill these out. I'm probably getting bored. That's okay. I'm trying to teach along the way too. Okay, so boom, 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 we tagged. And this underlying trend line, I just thought, no, it wasn't there. It was more like this, wasn't it? Just in case it pops out. I really like that. They kind of intersected there. That would have been a really good place to short this thing. But anyway, I didn't even know this stock existed. Let me see here. Ding ding. Let's come in. Right there, that tip. And then, anyway, I think it was this tip. Not an exact science, but anyway, ding, ding, ding. Yeah. Okay, let's do a trend-based fib extension from here. Okay, so this is kind of pointing at 185. Like this trend line here, it's not the best. That's okay. 185. I don't know. I'm just thinking, probably you're at 180, probably 185. You can get up to 185. I think that's probably all the money before you get another check back. Maybe I'm wrong. But ding, ding, ding. I like the 185 level, and I'm not a fan of this trend line here. Thought I had another one underneath. I don't think I saved it. Now I'm just wasting a lot of time. Sorry. Let's see here. No, we gotta be. It's like the same thing. Where was it? Anyway, I'll yield. I'll yield your time. If this is a decent parallel, and this kind of trend line here was 2017. I don't necessarily like that. Should have this set up a little bit better. I do like this. Boom, 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 boom. I would say I'd watch this trend line. If you hit this trend line again, forget that peak. Ding, ding. Kind of here before it gets rejected. So it was trying to break out, got rejected. So if you can get back up here, yeah, 185. 185. And that could be the 18th of August. 18th of August, they report on the 27th. So I would see if you can squeeze 185 out of the Royal Bank of Canada. Not financial advice, but that's kind of that's what I'm seeing in the chart is 185. Okay. If you enjoyed this, if you made it this far, thank you. I'm gonna zoom in here on the Royal Bank of Canada. I was really trying to be as detailed as possible. Oh, just notice this. Look at this. This is a topping tail on the weekly. Hold on. Hold the phone. I'm gonna hide this. Hide. Let's see if we have volume underneath this thing. Let's see if we have volume. We don't have a lot of volume. We don't have a lot of selling pressure, so this topping tail can be negated. If this was a huge volume spike, at least above I do a 20-day average, I think, a 200-day moving average. So this is your 200-day moving average, and it's below even the 200-day moving average on the selling pressure on the weekly. So that's very suspect. But this is the highs of the chart, and you had a lot of selling pressure. Right as you were kind of nearing, see, let me adjust this thing. Right as you were nearing the top of this parallel, because we went from weekly, monthly to weekly. So maybe you're not going to see 185. You might want to see if you even get back above the midpoint here, like 182. Interesting. If you start getting below this topping tail, if you start getting below 180, start closing below 180, then this probably thing is going to reverse. But it doesn't have to, right? Here, I'm not satisfied. Sorry. I'm not satisfied. Yeah, just look at this upsloping thing here. what this is doing. This is kind of going like this. So yeah, I mean, you could get to 185. I would keep an eye on 185, and I'm just gonna end it there. Okay, this is not financial advice, but this thing looks like it's nearing the end of its run. All right, and I'll leave you with that, and we'll revisit it. We'll see. We'll see. But this trend line looks good. This parallel looks good. If you get a pop up to 185, I'd probably take it. All right, as a trader, I would take it. As a long-term investor, you get a pullback, and then you're higher later. But if we have a financial crisis, it's going to be years or decades before you get your money back. That I'll yield you your time. Thank you for watching, and God bless you. Take care.